Hey there, Sarah here of the Sisters Enchanted, and today I'm talking to you about 3 ways to celebrate the equinox as a family. All right, so I asked in our Facebook community what you guys wanted to learn about this week, and overwhelmingly, people wanted to hear the topic of 3 ways to celebrate the equinox as a family. So, as you can see, I am in the northern hemisphere and I have already been bringing a little bit of spring into my space here in my home. And I'm going to give you 3 ways you can celebrate the equinox with your family or by yourself if you're a single person this year without friends and family to celebrate with. And of course, you have our whole community, so you're totally not alone. Be sure to reach out and say hi because lots of other people will be sharing as well. So let's start with talking about Ostara a little bit and the spring equinox since I'm in the northern hemisphere. Ostara is basically very similar to our commercial Easter with the idea that the earth is coming back to life and is fertile, ready to bring you abundance of warmth and health and happiness and love and all that good stuff. And at the spring equinox and at the fall equinox, the autumn equinox, that is when we see that perfect balance of light and dark in our day. And we know that equinoxes have been celebrated for years and years and years and years since the beginning of when people could understand that something was happening. And we know this because there's multiple structures all over the world where there's windows and there's different alignment of objects within the structure where light only shines through twice a year, and that is at the equinoxes. So we know that this has been a method of tracking half time for since ancient times, since people understood, what was happening. So we love to celebrate the equinox here in our household. Whether you celebrate Easter, the equinox, Ostara, you can still do a lot of these fun activities this time of year and bring some of the spring energy into your life. So one of the things that you can do to celebrate as a family is create wildflower seed bombs or simply sprinkle wildflower seeds around. If you're me and you're kind of a lazy parent, one way to do this is to use those reusable eggs, like the Easter eggs. Eggs are a symbol often aligned with Ostara, actually because of that idea of fertility. I have my little selenite egg here. Uh, and so you can actually put wildflower seeds in these eggs. And if you have young kids in particular, love to go around and crack these open and sprinkle the wildflower seeds about. So we have a whole portion of our yard that's just kind of growth. We love to throw them in there. That's one really cool thing that you can do. You can also look online for all different recipes on how to actually make the seed bombs. Usually it's like a clay powder that you moisten up with some soil or potting soil or even compost and put the seeds right there and make a ball and you just chuck them, and where they land, hopefully your wildflowers pop up. Another thing that you can do as a family is bring out your bird feeders or get one if you don't have one or build one if you're handy. But bring out bird feeders and create space for the birds to come home again, feed them and have this lovely time. So that's 2 things. I'm going to give you the third at the end because it's the same as something if you're in the southern hemisphere. So if you're in the southern hemisphere, you are celebrating Mabon this coming up, and this is our that's your autumnal equinox. So for you, again, you have this perfect balance of light and dark, but you're preparing to see shorter days, where in the northern hemisphere, we have longer days coming to us. So one way that you can celebrate this equinox as a family is to create a big feast. This is the Mabon, the autumn equinox is the witches' Thanksgiving. It's the time when you have the harvest bounty. Food is plentiful. There's nothing to worry about. Celebrating the grain gods and bringing that all in for a really cool family feast and do it together. Using local food if you can is a really great way to do this. Another cool thing to do as a family, if you have kids in particular, is to create a cornucopia. So again, depending on what your lazy mom says, is you might make this really cool and extravagant or not so much, but you could paper mache a cornucopia. You could simply just purchase a basket and use it as a cornucopia, craft one up, but make a cornucopia and you can fill it either with things like fruits and vegetables from the harvest or actually put it right on pieces of paper what you're abundant in and make this be sort of the centerpiece of your feast, your autumnal equinox feast. So you can do this. We've done this in the past, and not this past year, but where we paper mache'd sort of a small cornucopia, just a small one. And written down things that we're grateful for and things that we feel like we're abundant in. And even still, things that we're not quite abundant in yet, but where we want to focus abundance. For one year, it was financial abundance. We definitely were not financially abundant, but our roof was over our head. We had a place to live. We had food in the fridge, and that's something to celebrate. So financial abundance went on that paper and went inside of our cornucopia. So having a feast to celebrate the autumnal equinox or Mabon down in the southern hemisphere, or creating a cornucopia. So the third thing that kind of goes across the board for both of these equinox celebrations, whether you're in the northern hemisphere or the southern hemisphere, is simply celebrating this idea of balance. So it's a perfect balance between light and dark. And talking as a family, what does that look like for you? And maybe even doing some fun things. One thing we love to do is take chocolate pancake mix and regular pancake mix, and we make our pancakes half chocolate, half regular. They're the two colors, light and dark, and the balance we have there. But then we also talk about how to prepare for the months ahead. So if you're in the northern hemisphere, this period between the autumnal equinox and Beltane, about the 1st of May, is our kind of like the wrap up on winter. It's the end of our dark months. It's where we can start spring cleaning, open our windows, declutter, create space for everything that we want the light months to be. And we can talk as a family and maybe make plans, maybe make a collage. We can go around and talk about how great or not great the dark months were, what we did during the winter, what are we going to miss about these dark months, but what are we excited for the light months. And then if you're in the southern hemisphere with Mabon and the autumnal equinox, it's just the opposite. You're wrapping up the dark months and getting ready, or you're wrapping up the light months and getting ready for your dark months. So how was your summer? What did you love about it? What are you going to miss about it? What are you going to cozy up with in the dark months? What's that going to look like for you? What are you going to reflect on? What are you sort of going to work on while you're in the confines of four walls? Because it's not really as easy to get outdoors. I know a lot of you in the southern hemisphere, though, you guys have warm all the time, so it's maybe a little bit different for you, but the idea is the same, that your energy sort of shifts when the weather shifts and the seasons shift, and your seasons still will shift a little bit. So what are you going to do differently in the dark months, and what are you so grateful for that happened in the light months, and plan a little bit as a family for those. So the third thing, whether you are celebrating the spring equinox or the autumnal equinox, is just to look at that idea of balance. There's always light and there's always dark, but when we follow the seasons, we have one of those kind of accentuated a little bit, and we can really work with that. So there's some ideas, some things you can do for Ostara, the spring equinox. Make some wildflower seed bombs. Oh, another way you can do that is actually to take eggshells, which is something we might try this year. We haven't tried this. We might try this instead of my lazy mom plastic eggs. Take actual eggshells and just fill those with a little bit of soil and wildflower seeds. And then the kids can throw those because the eggs will break down into the earth. So that's a way that you can do that too. So in the northern hemisphere, the wildflower seed bombs, getting the bird feeders out, and then having that discussion about wrapping up the winter months, getting ready for spring. And if you're in the southern hemisphere, having a big harvest feast. Remember, it's the witches' Thanksgiving. Enjoy that. And then making yourself a cornucopia, or just craft up a basket, or just choose one and put in some different things that you have abundance in, or that you want abundance in, or different areas of your life where you are abundant, and fill up that cornucopia and make it the center of your harvest feast. So there's a few ways for you, some ideas to celebrate the equinox with your family. I hope you enjoy, and we'll see you in our next video. Happy equinox season. Bye.